My name is Sophie Davish. I'm a junior finance major in the Honors College here. I'm originally from outside of Philadelphia, so I came really far from school to a place where not a people from my high school go. So I was kind of taking a leap of faith. I wanted to try somewhere where I didn't know anybody and figure out who I am for myself. And I talked about this in the debate, but I had the epiphany moment that a lot of us do. Like when we step on the horseshoe, when we take our first tour, when we meet our first group of friends, like this is really your community and your home. So I've been so passionate about this university and everything it's done. And I know I talk to my parents all the time that I wouldn't be the person I am today without this university. So I want to be your next student body vice president so I can give back to this university in the way that I know best, which is through student government. Outside of that, I've been involved with a lot of different things on campus. I'm a member of Greek Life, so I've seen all the good and the bad that Greek Life can do. I'm a member of Circle of Sisterhood in Greek Life, so every single college Panhellenic Association affiliated sorority has their own philanthropy. So I'm a member of Zeta Tau Alpha, and ours is breast cancer education and awareness. But when I got to campus, I was like, I really want to see what other philanthropies I can get involved with. And one thing I'm really passionate about is women's rights, especially women's rights overseas. So Circle of Sisterhood is an organization that all the sororities together, our philanthropy is empowering girls in third world countries by providing them with education. So I was like, that is incredible. What a cool concept, especially because sorority women is the largest concentration of college educated women in the world. So I joined that organization my freshman year, kind of knew nothing about running meetings to having my own committee. I kind of just jumped into it head first, and we raised $60,000 over the process of 2 years. And I traveled to Senegal this past December to live with the community that now has access to education because of Greek Life here. Such a cool experience to kind of be really out of my comfort zone, to live with these families who have such different lives than we do and get to learn about their culture. And such a cool experience. And now there's 80 little girls and boys in Toubaniene, Senegal that go to school because of USC Greek Life. Outside of that, I've been in student government for 3 years. I was on freshman council, student senate finance committee, which I'll talk about for a few minutes because I absolutely loved finance committee. We had the opportunity every Friday, we would sit down for about 5 hours, and student organizations would come and request funds from this lump sum of $180,000, and we would allocate money for events. If they were going on trips to conferences, representing at competitions, we would allocate a certain amount of money to all these organizations. We had codes in an attempt to try to make it the most fair and make sure that one organization wasn't getting this huge sum of money that wasn't representative of all the students across campus. So I love that. I learned how much power student government has to empower other students on campus. Through this campaign, we get to visit all these organizations on campus and see what they're passionate about and see what they love. And I learned about all these great events and how passionate they are in finance committee, and I've been able to continue that through this campaign. And then most recently, my experience is chief of staff to the student body vice president. Mills kind of took a chance on me. I wasn't like the number one choice you would think of for a chief of staff. I was kind of quiet. I did go work, but I hadn't really had a chance to kind of get out of my shell and really put in the hard work that it takes to be a chief of staff. And I've loved every second of that role. I love working with the other chiefs. I love getting to work with administrators. Mills really brings me in the room and has taught me how to be a leader in my own right. I get to plan new initiatives. I get to help her take her ideas and formulate them into logistical things that can actually happen. I know exactly what can work, what can't work, and what we can push the envelope on. We've done such great things with existing programs such as Carolina Closet. I know a lot of students didn't know about that before, and I want to make it my goal that every single student knows what Carolina Closet is, and that's just one example of all our initiatives. A lot of the organizations I've gone around to, I asked them if they know what Stigma Free is, if they had heard about Carolina Beautiful Week, and most of the time about 80% of the hands go up, which is incredible, but my goal is for it to be 100. So when I thought about running, I knew that my work in student government wasn't quite done. I knew that I had done a lot of great work, and I came into student government with the goal if I had helped one student, that I would have reached it. But I know student government has the power to help every single student on this campus, whether it's through programs like Carolina Closet, whether it's through the programs on Lyrics and I's platform that we're excited about. I think it's such a tremendous opportunity with campaigns to go meet the students where they are, to find out what they need. I know last year we were talking when I was running Mills' campaign for her, we were talking to student athletes and they felt so disconnected from the student body sometimes. So one of the initiatives that Lyric and I want to do, we're working with Ryan Holinsky and his family's foundation, Holinsky's Hope, to make student athletes more integrated into the general student population. Because we were speaking with Ryan for a little bit, and he talked about how he gets on Twitter and they get these awful things said about student athletes because people see them as like this pillar up there. But if they felt the support of the Carolina community around them, it would be a little bit better. We're also working with his family's foundation to bring mental health programs to campus, such as mental health training for student leaders. A lot of student leaders sometimes put their members first, and we want them to make sure they know about self-care, taking care of themselves, as well as how to look out for signs in their members around them. And then talk on our platform some more. I know I kind of have been all over the place with this, but I love talking about student government. I love talking about everything that we've done. And Lyric and I together, we're so different that we bring diverse voices and diverse ideas to the table in a way that I don't think has ever been done before. So our platform has 4 main pillars: sustainability, mental health, student life, and inclusion and equity. We had so many great ideas and so many great people we could bring to the table. We were able to work closely with Katie Cohen, who created Stigma for USC. We were able to work closely with Jenna Allen, who created the big event and has done some really revolutionary things with sustainability on campus. To talk about those points really quickly. Sustainability, Lyric and I know we're not experts, but we want to learn and we want to advocate for the right change. With the change in the dining providers, we've seen a lot of unsustainable practices going on. We want to advocate as president and student body vice president for those changes to be made, for more recycling, for more composting, for less use of plastic. We also want, in regards to mental health, for Stigma for USC, we want every single student to know about it. We also want to expand it to include students who are survivors of sexual assault, survivors of PTSD. We want every single student, no matter their story, to feel involved in this week. And I'm very proud of the work Mills and I have done by including eating disorders and body positivity, but I think we can do even better. For student life, there's so many platform points under that because we want to try to include everyone once again, but debit and credit card readers in the Bull Street Garage. We also want to make sure that student fee transparency. I know we talk about this a lot, but from the roles that Lyric and I have had, we know it's possible for you to get your bill and you to see where every single dollar by dollar is going. We work so hard for our money, and we don't think it's fair that students don't always know where that money's going. For inclusion and equity, we want to do Equity Week, which is an entire week. A lot of students don't come to campus prepared to get the job or the internship that they need, and we want to prepare them by providing things like relaunching the Carolina Closet, making sure every student knows about that, LinkedIn workshops, professional dinner workshops, making sure that they know exactly the skills they need to excel in the next internship or job that they dream of. So I don't know what I missed. Sustainability, mental health, student life, inclusion, equity. Yeah, those are our 4 points. I mean, we have so many more on our website and so many things I can talk about if you guys have any questions, but I think that's my spiel. And just to emphasize one more time, I am so proud to be running. I'm doing this because I love this university so much. I believe I have the experience and the skills to take this university and student government to the next level. I know sometimes there's a bad negative connotation around someone who's already in student government running for these roles, but I've seen so much else outside of student government. I see the good and the bad, and I want to emphasize on the good and change the bad, and I know together, Lyric and I can bring a diverse group that'll do just that.
You mentioned just now that there's a negative connotation for someone in student government running for these roles. Do you think that there is a stigma around student government?
I don't know if I would say the word stigma because we have sometimes done things to warrant those types of responses. Like, I really think that student media, general students on campus should be checking student government. If we do something that they're not okay with and doesn't sit right with them, I think they should say something. So I don't know if it's necessarily stigma, but I think as someone who's been in student government for 3 years, I want to emphasize my experience, but I also want to emphasize that I see that there's so much more on campus in student government. I want to use student government as a vessel to help other students, and so they can understand everything student government can do for them.
With your experience as chief of staff to the vice president, do you feel like you've developed an understanding of what the role of a vice president really is, and do you understand? That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the change, so this past year they added the Speaker of the Senate position. Mm-hmm. So that originally vice president, all they did was preside over Senate, essentially what the Speaker of the Senate is now. Right. So when Mills got inaugurated, the position changed completely. It was essentially herself and me creating the precedent for this role. We started from the ground up. We had never had a role that was just for programming and initiatives, and we ran with it. I know exactly what it takes to run this position. Mills has brought me into the room with all the administrators. I really believe that there shouldn't be a huge transition period between these student government officers because the students suffer from that. The students suffer from an executive officer that's making their first mistakes, that is trying to learn in this role. And I have seen the mistakes. I know I will not make those. I know how we can work harder. I know the right people to put in these positions, and I'm so excited to hopefully be your next student body vice president and just hit the ground running.
You mentioned wanting to get 100% of students knowing what the SG programs are and
Yeah.
what we're doing. How do you plan exactly to do that?
So I think with campaigning right now, we have such an incredible chance to talk to all these students, get them to at least even think about, what is student government? Let me go look on their website some more. I only got to talk to these people for a couple minutes. But I think moving on, if I am elected, I want to be more transparent to the students. And one example of that is I want to have my office hours once a week on Green Street. Right now, our office hours, we have 10 to 15 a week, and they're in the back of the student government office. I think if I wasn't in student government, I wouldn't be completely comfortable walking all the way back there, knocking on Taylor Wright's door and being like, hey, I have a problem, or hey, I have a question. So once a week, rain or shine, I want to have my office hours on Green Street so students feel comfortable to come up and share their ideas with me. And then I can also talk about programs and initiatives that we have coming up. I think social media as well, we have transformed it over the past year, and I want to keep working in that direction. We are always glued to our phones, unfortunately, but I also think that's powerful in spreading great programs and initiatives.
Okay. All right.
Alright, okay. So, as this governing body of the university, what are your plans to be transparent with everyone, so including the students and the media as well?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, the office hours on Green Street, anybody, including student media, can come and just stand and talk to me. I think Lyric and I have also tried to be transparent in our everyday lives. We had someone DM us last night and ask, how much do you spend on a campaign? And Lyric and I are more than happy to talk about that because this is money that we worked hard towards. And while sometimes campaigns get caught up in handing out free things on Green Street, and that's not the core of it. So we want to be transparent in our everyday lives and what we do. But I think student government as a whole, our executive officers have to set the tone. I want to tell every single one of my staff members that they have to go out and talk to outside organizations, that we can't just be stuck inside. I want almost all of our programs that we put on to be partnering with an outside organization, and I believe that because Lyric and I are so different, have such different organizations, we're going to be partnering with a diverse group of organizations and not just ones that I'm a part of or Lyric's a part of. We're going to bring this group that has different ideas, that has different experiences, and I'm really excited about that. I think transparency is something that is such a high ideal and it's really hard to accomplish, but if you have the right skills and you know exactly what can be done, it's an amazing goal to set and to strive towards.
So you mentioned campaign spending. Would you be willing to talk more about that?
I would kind of almost prefer if Lyric and I talked about it together, but what I said last night, and it's for one of my friends that is writing an opinion article, we spent around $1,500 each, and that's probably around where the money's going to stay.
Okay.
Or I think we're under a little bit, $1,500 each, and that's probably the cap we're gonna hit.
Okay.
And I mean, you can ask Lyric about this, but she worked really hard for that money. I know she's worked several jobs. I've been saving since the summer for this, so
Okay.
we're excited. I think it's tough to talk about money in this situation because I really would like to say we are just doing this because we love the student body. I wish we could just sit out there at the table and talk to students, but we are running a campaign, and unfortunately this is how politics is, and I want to get to the core, and I want to talk to people like you guys and say it's so much more than the money.
Yeah.
I know this is how much we're spending. We're doing it so we can have the opportunity to talk to people, and if a student will stop and eat a slice of pizza that we're providing for them and we have to tell them about our ideas, that's money well spent, in my opinion.
And I appreciate you being honest.
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned, all of the campaign finance, but how would you feel if there were to be a campaign cap?
Lyric and I were talking about that. We want to work towards, if elected, to institute a campaign cap. Because right now there are a lot of students who think they could never run because it is really hard to put that money together.
You mentioned sustainability. What can you actually do to improve sustainability on campus?
Yeah, so obviously besides advocating with the dining provider, because within our positions, we're one of the few students that can actually get in those rooms and speak to those higher level administrators. But on our more personal level, we want every single student government event to be Green Event certified, which is a program with Sustainable Carolina, where they go and just make sure that our event checks all the boxes of not using excessive amount of paper, not using a lot of plastic, using no styrofoam, because that is awful. But just working with them, and we went and spoke with them last night, and as I said earlier, Lyric and I are not experts in any of these fields that we're talking about, but we're willing to bring the experts to the table and learn from them.
Talking to eco reps on campus, they have talked about how it's really difficult to recycle on campus and to promote sustainability because there's simply not the manpower on campus to actually recycle, so very little of that is able to be recycled. How would you overcome that?
I think we would overcome that by moving some funding around. If there is not the base funding, then obviously you can't get the manpower behind it, and as soon as right after inauguration, we put together that new budget, and we work with administrators to put together the budget for the school. Obviously, we can only advocate a little bit for that, but we can move the budget around in our sense to where we think the money should be going. And I think that's one powerful thing, too, of having people in student government with experience, because you have to make that budget as soon as you get in. And Lyric and I understand and already formulating in our minds where we want the money to go, what programs I would need money for, how we can best use the student government budget, and so nothing falls through the cracks.
You mentioned that you want to continue Carolina Closet and Stigma-Free USC. Do you have any other plans or programs that you are thinking of implementing on top of those?
So one that Lyric and I are working on together is called Give Back U of SC. So when we were talking to the bursar's office and putting together our platform, we also heard about this because Mississippi State has a similar program. So sometimes students, especially those that pay for their own courses or are taking out a lot of loans, they can have really small amounts of money that prevent them from taking classes, such as $20 outstanding, $200 outstanding, all up to $2,000. So with Give for Garnet, which is a day of alumni and student giving, we're going to have a fund out from that they can donate to directly, all voluntary, obviously. And we're going to have a fund that students that are experiencing financial hardship and can't attend classes because of that small or large outstanding fee can apply for. We want every single student to be able to go to class, and we understand that sometimes there are outstanding circumstances that are preventing them from getting the education that they want, and we think to a certain extent that's unacceptable.
You mentioned creating an equity week. Would that be partnering with the Career Center?
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. I was kind of all over the place. Yes, I would be partnering with the Career Center and with pre-professional fraternities.
So if something were to happen if you were vice president, like an error or a mistake, how would you hold yourself accountable or like someone on your staff accountable?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the first thing I would do is address it directly. Hopefully, student government has a pretty good following right now on social media, and I would take that first step to talk about it on that platform, whether like a letter being released or a short video of myself talking about it. I think being upfront with the students and letting them know that, we're not just going to sweep this under the rug. Like, you recognize that just happened. I might not have all the answers in that moment, but I'm going to keep working towards making sure we address it. Whether it be in a couple days, we have to figure it out, but as soon as that happens, I want to be open with the student body because they're looking towards us, and we have a lot of power in student government, and with power, there's great responsibility, and I plan to take that responsibility very seriously.
You mentioned that with Mills, you really kind of made this, the vice president, an entirely different platform. Yeah. How do you think you're going to continue it as something that's still growing and still learning to be, something new?
Yeah, so I think it's important. I'm going to kind of talk about two things now. I think consistency in this role is so important. We kind of crafted it, and we don't want any of the great things we've done over this past year to get forgotten about. I mean, Mills and I are still working right now. On March 6th, we have a Women in Politics panel. I believe in this office more than anything. I'm not giving up on that just because I'm running for this office as well. I think Mills, also being alongside her, I know all these little things that you wouldn't be able to learn during like a week of transitions and her teaching a new person how to do this. I'm so proud of all the work we've done. I know we've made mistakes, but I believe Mills really has a heart for this university, and I've learned so much from working so closely with her.
I feel like we talked a little bit under the sustainability, equity and inclusion, and student life umbrellas. Can we talk a little bit about the mental health umbrella?
Yeah, so with mental health, we were working really closely with Katie Cohen. Kind of as soon as we knew we were going to run, we were like, all right, we're going to sit down with Katie. She's a rock star. She also knows the other people, the other rooms that we should be in to talk about this. So.
Can you explain who Katie Cohen is?
Yes, I'm so sorry. So Katie Cohen is the Secretary of Mental Health
Okay.
under the President's Cabinet, and she created Stigma Free USC, like completely crafted that. She's also created there's like a name for it that I can't remember off the top of my head, but she also is helping other schools in South Carolina put on a similar program. So she's essentially taking her model and is teaching other schools how to put on the same thing, which is amazing. She's a rock star, so knowledgeable in this area.
Sorry to
So
interrupt.
no, you're more than fine. So with programs such as Stigma Free USC and Carolina Beautiful, I just want to keep working on student engagement in that. We've had great turnout, a lot of people coming to our Smash Talk panel that we have Carolina Beautiful Week. I know what administrators you have to speak to put on an event such as this. I think we're going to keep working on that, and as I said before, making sure every population on this campus feels like their voice is heard. With Carolina Beautiful Week, we had this, I remember seeing this Instagram post, so we had a hashtag that encouraged people to share their body positivity journey or their eating disorder story. And there was this one girl who put this really long post about how she struggled with eating disorder all her life and she never felt represented at USC. And that was something that I saw, and I think that is so powerful if we can touch and change that one life through student government. I never knew that student government had that power until I really got into it and started making changes. And then with Holinsky's Hope, working with Ryan Holinsky, their family's foundation is so powerful. I'm actually meeting up with them later this afternoon to get some Holinsky's Hope bracelets to hand out at tabling and talking with them exactly about how they want me to word it. But we're looking to bring mental health training for student leaders. We're looking to bring different workshops on bystander training intervention, which I think is so powerful because often on campus we don't always pick up the signs, like we're so involved in our own lives that we don't know. And you don't know if you don't have the proper training of what to look out for in your friends and your peers and your coworkers. So we're really excited about that.
You said that you really want to be able to get the voice of organizations.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of organizations.
I know.
How are you planning on actually going about being able to connect with them?
Yeah, so what we did with Mills administration, and I would like to do again and kind of take the model that we already have and tighten it up a little bit, is we had every single member of our staff, we split up all the organizations on campus and assigned, I want to say it's about 30 to 40 to each one of our staff members. It was their goal to reach out to these organizations, say, hey, my name is so-and-so, I'm so-and-so, I'm the vice president's staff. Could I come to one of your organization meetings? I can talk for a couple minutes about student government if you want, or at the very least, can I just watch? We had a lot of success from that. Not every single organization meets regularly, so that's something we want to work on, maybe putting out a video that we can send to them explaining what student government does, explaining if they need funding, this is who you can go talk to the treasurer's office for that. If you want a program or initiative to partner with, you go to the VP's office for that. So it's just kind of being creative and meeting students where they already are. I don't think it's fair that we should make these students come all the way back to the student government office to come and talk to us. We're a body for the students. We should go where they already are.
You mentioned partnering with organizations. How do you plan to partner with student media?
With student media, I'd love to have a conversation with you guys about what exactly that looks like, but I'd love to invite you to every single event that we have upcoming. If you want to come to Women in Politics, that's going to be such a cool event. We're working with some great legislators. We have such a powerful impact being in the capital city. But I think it's different from every organization. Obviously, it would be very different partnering with you, but I want to be transparent. I loved some of the coverage you've had this semester of Carolina Beautiful Week. That was wonderful, and I think so powerful to hear about Mills especially as such a public figure sharing her story. I believe you guys have so much power in the media. You have power to talk about the good student government does and also to check us if we're not doing our jobs properly.
Is there these sort of initiatives like Carolina Beautiful Week or programs like Swipe Out Hunger, that sort of thing? Is there any sort of way to actually kind of concretely measure the impact that these initiatives really have on students? Like, there might be one person who shares their anecdotal story, but like, how do we know that this is happening for the majority of campus?
Yeah, so that is hard, especially with new initiatives. Even on the campus side, when they do a new initiative, it takes a couple years until they can measure the impact. We try to do that through surveys, but typically that's one of those things that students have to go out of their way to do. So I know I keep going back to this point, but I mean, having office hours on Green Street, being out there, we can get a better gauge of asking these students, hey, did you participate in anything for Sigma Free USC? Did you participate in anything for Carolina Beautiful Week? Like, are we missing something? Because unfortunately, Lyric and I are only 2 people, and we're going to bring this amazing staff that knows what they're doing, knows the right questions to ask, but there's only so much we can do if we're just going to lock ourselves back in the student government office and not go out to where the people already are. So I think I'd love to keep doing with surveys, keep going out on Green Street, out there with iPads, hopefully having students answer questions, but it's a tough road, absolutely. I think with social media, it makes it a little bit easier too. We always try to measure the impact that we have, the likes, the interactions we get, which is blown up this year. I wish I knew the exact numbers, but we're doing much better on social media than we used to. A lot more students are actually interested in what student government's doing and interacting with us on our posts.
You mentioned that it's going to take a few years to be able to actually completely and concretely see the engagement of all of it. Do you think that there's going to be a lot of initiatives that continue on after your time would be up?
Absolutely, yeah. So typically initiatives that do well and have the student impact that we want them to have live on through multiple administrations. I think especially with me working so closely with Mills, events such as Carolina Beautiful Week that had a huge reach. We had so many people come to the Smash Talk panel. It was pretty much almost completely filled in the Russell House portion of the ballroom that we had. We had so many people come to the scale smashing during the day. I have been able to concretely see what works and what doesn't, so I won't put on these initiatives again that maybe the students didn't really feel like they connected with. But I do have the chance to see how these initiatives work, talk to the same administrators, say, hey, we're doing this again, like, don't forget about us. And I think student government as a whole, I mean, our goal is yes to shake things up, try new things, but it's also for what works and what the student body likes is to continue those things. I mean, we work for the student body, we don't work for ourselves.
So you work directly with Mills. How important do you think it will be for you as vice president to kind of have your chief of staff be someone you almost mentor or someone to continue into this role?
Yeah, so it was kind of a different dynamic last year. I think it was so great that our very first vice president, who was kind of crafting this role, was an outsider in student government. Mills has so much great experience with SGTV. She was our station manager. She had done a lot of different things on campus, and then she was ready to come into student government as an outsider. I had been in student government for a couple of years at that point, so I understood a little bit more how student government works, and we kind of helped each other. She brought this outside perspective. I knew about the logistics. I've been on finance committee. I kind of knew how the budget worked a little bit more, and it was like a really cool meeting of the minds almost. And she taught me, she brought me in these rooms that were so important for me to be in. We would sit down and we would bounce ideas off of each other. I'm always very logistic thinking. I like to think, all right, that's a great idea, but how can we actually get that done? I have a very big programming mindset, and I've learned a lot of that through Mills. I think for myself, not even just having a chief of staff, having a staff of a group of students that, yes, they're working for me, but also maybe I can teach them a little bit. I can bring them into those rooms. I think chief of staff is so important, but I think every single member of student government should have that opportunity to interact with the executive officers, learn a little bit from them. I mean, if they could take one little piece from each of our conversations that we have, each programming council that we have, and typically when Mills and I try to put on initiatives, we try to put together like a little council, like a little team of 10 of us that can work on it together. It's never really just the vice president. It's the vice president and the people behind them.
Is there anything that, you wanted to talk about that maybe we didn't cover?
I'm trying to think. I've been in such like a campaign mindset. Even when I'm just with my friends, it's like all I can think about and all I can talk about, which is not a bad thing. But I love student government. I love this student body. I think I can make a real impact by working with them, bringing new voices to the table. I unfortunately don't have every single idea, but one thing I did want to talk about, cock stock needs to be changed. It was, I'm not super happy with how this year went. Mills and I worked really well together and worked with Catherine Studemeyer, who's our calc stock director at the time, but I think there was a little bit of miscommunication on the administrative side, saying we could do certain things. Turns out last minute we could not. I know these administrators, I kind of know where I can push the envelope, and I want to put on an event such as how it was 3 years ago, if any of you guys were here, where like the entire student body converged on this field and had a concert and had so much fun. And the basketball team was there and parts of the football team were, and it's just this celebration of students and celebration of everybody coming together. I want to change it, and I think being here over the summer, I have the planning ahead capabilities to make sure that really is an event that I want.